So the next job there, of course, is track laying. So initially I just want to get the basic up and down lines going, and the fiddle yard being the most important bit. All the other extra bits of the depot, the yards, things like that, they can all wait till a bit later. But initially with the 12 droppers I've got in, 6 on the up, 6 on the down line effectively, that gives me enough to get the system started and up and running so that I can connect the DCC controller and start running and testing and programming, of course, the DCC locos. I shall keep the Kato Unitrack just on the very inside, just so at least I can keep running the older DC locos for now. So we'll see what happens next. Right, time to get some track laying done on the actual layout. So I'm at the fiddle yard, as you can see. Got the HST, full length HST in the loop set for that. Also I'll add a bit of extra room because that will take the Freightliner train as well. But also there's enough room to actually get a loco on the front of HST if I want to simulate a HST breakdown. Then behind we have the loco plus 8. And again, room for another loco on the rear, so if you're doing top and tail formation. And then the next loop on the inside, which will be for sort of parcels and shorter trains. And then the main down line on the back here. So what I'm going to do is start with the points that are leading into the fiddle yard from the western side of the layout if you want. And then the same on the eastern side, on the opposite side over there. And then we'll get some track connected between them. Obviously at the same time I need to allow for the droppers because this is the hinge section here, so that's going to need power on all of these sections, and then obviously power either end of the points. So I'll get the trains out of the way now that I'm happy I've got the spacings and I know where the points need to go, and then we'll start the cutting and laying. So I guess cue the music. So that's the sets of points connected together there, all fish plated up, ready for the left entrance to the fiddle yard and the right entrance to the fiddle yard, as you're looking at it from where I am at the minute. So the next thing to do will be to get some of those pre-wired fish plate droppers and connect to the 2 end points that are going to feed each of the loops into the fiddle yard. Connect those up and then mark out where I need to drill the holes ready to put the droppers through to connect to the bus wire. Okay, so 3 points there that are going to form the entrance to the fiddle yard, all connected up with the droppers. Mark the 2 points where I'm going to put the holes for the dropper wires to go down to the bus wire. Have checked underneath to make sure there's no bracing or anything in the way, because that's obviously quite important, but no problems there. So we'll get these drilled. So I have remembered the important part, which is the black to the back. So keeping that all the way around the track, on the up and down lines, etc. Black lead will always be at the back. Give the wires a twist. Hopefully that should drop down through there. Twist again. that down there. Fish plates obviously not that tight to there. Probably should have gone tighter with that and made it so that the wires are directly underneath looking at that, so I think I might just re-drill that. Okay, well I've actually decided not to re-drill the holes. Just playing around then, and basically what I seem to have found is these pre-wired fish plate droppers. Obviously they're a little bit fiddly and they haven't got so much give in them as if you were going directly soldering underneath and going down through the board. So actually the little bit of angle I've got there won't actually hurt too much. This is in the fiddle yard anyway, so it's not going to be visible, but probably going ahead obviously when I'm doing the main section, something to bear in mind because you want to see as little of the wire as possible. But yeah, that was quite fiddly, so I've just had to get the magnifying goggles on, make sure I'd got the fish plates connected up to it tightly. That's where I need the point to be there to start off the curves into the fiddle yard. So I think that should be okay like that. This will need pinning down, and then obviously we can start connecting the track that's going to form the circuit that way. But of course I need to do the ones on the other side as well, ready for the other entrance to the fiddle yard. Getting quite peckish now though, so I think it's time for some lunch. So a quick bite to eat often does wonders, and had a thought while I was doing that do you actually need to do 2 holes, one either side for each wire? So while I was waiting for the battery to charge up on the video, drilled 1 hole in there and fed both wires through the same hole, and that's worked quite nicely. So just need to hoover the mess up. And now we're ready to pin down these 3 points here and the 3 at the opposite end, and then I can get laying some track in between the 2. Probably not worth doing much filming on that because you will have all have seen or have done. Laying straight track isn't too exciting or too difficult, so I'll probably cut back when I've got that done. So what I've actually done here is more of a temporary measure. I have pinned the points, so they are solid in there. They'll change and everything. But I haven't actually pinned through the points. I've pinned on little holes either side of where the actual switch is, and at the ends just to cut out any lateral movement. And I've done this before because it's a bit of a temporary measure, still good enough to connect all the track up, so you can test if everything's working. But it's much easier if there is a problem, if you need to lift a point out, if there's a problem with a point, if your alignment's not quite right or something like that. I find it's much easier to do that and take the pins out at the side than it is to actually pin everything down in its final version, if you like. Much harder to get out then, and you're more likely to do damage to the points, whereas when it's by the side or just through the little holes where the actual switch is, it's easier to get them out and you're not likely to do any damage to them. So for now, I've done that at both sides. So we're ready to start connecting either the track off each end now, or what I'll more likely do is go for the track on the loops and get these laid down. Then at least we can get some stock in there and tested and make sure everything runs manually over that. Right, so as you can probably see from this overall shot, the down fiddle yard and down line are now all laid in. All the points are in, 3 loops are in, so you can see we've got a full length 2+8 HST in there, comfortably in that loop with a bit of space either end. Another loop behind there for a low chord set, which would do a 2+8. Another one there which would do a loco +6 coaches, and then that being the down main line there. And then I've also got the 3 points laid either side, ready for what will be the up line and the 3 up loops going in there. Now, having said when I was doing this about putting the droppers through, and at either end I have got the fish plates which already have the dropper wires pre-soldered to them, put at both entrance points on either end of the fiddle yard. I did forget to put the droppers on these sections here, which will be the hinge section which will drop, which obviously when it's broken from the 2 feeds there will need power. Not too much of a biggie really, and I've only put a few pins in to hold this down, so it's just a case of taking the pins out, putting some droppers on these 4 tracks here, and then putting them back in again. I'll show you a closer look up now. So this is the east side of the fiddle yard, and you can see the points which turn into each of the loops there with the pre-wired soldered fish plates. And then we have the same on the west end of the fiddle yard with the pre-wired soldered fish plate droppers. And then that gives you an idea of the overall view of the fiddle yard as it is, with the down main line nearest to us and then the 3 down loops, and then you can just see the points ready for the up loops, ready to have the track fitted there. Although of course this time I must remember to solder the droppers underneath, ready for going underneath. So this is the east end of the fiddle yard now, and as you can see I've got my track setters in, and I'm putting the concrete sleepered flexi track in here because this bit you will actually see, so it's more realistic to have the concrete sleeper track in being the main line section. And I'm just pinning this down and trying to get a smooth curve, nice transition from the point round the corner and into the station, which will just be off screen to the left here. Most of this section coming across here will be hidden by a bridge. Just the classic thing to do, obviously, where you've got a bit of a corner that's probably a bit tighter than you'd like to in real life. Just hide it a bit with a bridge or a tunnel or something. So bowstring style bridge coming across here is my plan. But I thought I'd do this bit next because I can bring quite a run into the platforms as you look into the left of shot, and obviously onto the right, that's where the fiddle yard is. I can do the same at the other end, and then I'm starting to get a bit of a more of a length of track then that I can run some stock on and just make sure everything's running through the fiddle yard properly before I go too much further. So we'll see how that goes. So there we go, a few minutes later, and that curve into the station is in. Use my track setters, went down quite nicely. I think it's a decent curve. We'll bring a, I'll just push a HST set in so you can see. I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's too bad a curve, and like I say, once the bridge is over there, that'll hide a bit of it anyway, but yeah, I think that's gone okay. We'll get the up line in next, and then I'll work on the other side of the fiddle yard and get the up and down lines laid there as well. Right, well, that didn't go anywhere near as easily as the other side, ironically, being as I was doing a time lapse on this one. But after a couple of changes of wires where the fish plate's got a little bit bent and a couple of repositionings, we do have the down main and the up main in position now. Obviously plenty of clearance there. The down will probably have to come in a little bit, I think. I've been a little bit generous with the spacing on there. But there is going to be an embankment and a tunnel there. Just not entirely sure at which point the tunnel's coming out. I've carried on with the old style sleeper track up to this point, and then I shall put the concrete track in from there. So the tunnel's going to be roughly around in this area, so there might be a small crossover, but I don't think you'll notice that too much. So yeah, that's basically the up and down fasts in the fiddle yard loops done on this side and on the other side. So soldering is something I've not really done much of in the past at all, surprisingly. Something I definitely need to do though for this layout, because even though I've got those pre-soldered fish plate droppers that I've shown you earlier, there's quite a few sections of track where you won't be using fish plates, long straights and things, but that would benefit from the dropper wires going down to the bus wire. So I've got myself a little short section of spare track here, a couple of sleeper sections out, got myself some spare old wire from the previous layout I'm not using anymore, strip the ends off. Soldering iron, first time to try this as well, that's sat there warmed up and ready to go. So I'm going to have a go at putting some solder on 3 sections here, tinning the wires are the same, and then see if I can get those to successfully join to the track here, and then if that works then I can start getting the long lengths of especially the concrete sleeper track I've got on the long sections, get some of those out, get the dropper wire soldered onto that, get them up onto the board, drill the holes through, connect them up to the bus wire, and then we'll start having the basis of the main oval up and down lines appearing on the layout. So let's see how we go with this. Well, not bad for a first attempt, I don't think. Not pretty. Lead's quite short on the solder, actually. Soldering on made it a little bit more awkward there to get the angle I wanted, but I mean that's 3 pieces put on. They're not the prettiest of joins. Certainly from the other side I'll need to do something a bit better, especially on that middle one, but not too bad for first attempt, I don't think. Yeah. Practice makes perfect, as they say. Right, so as you can see, that's 4 sections of concrete sleeper track soldered up with every droppers, remembering that I've done a black to the back on each one of those. So that's 2 each for the up main and 2 each for the down main. One either end of the fiddle yard, one going into the straight, which is going to be the countryside straight, and 1 each for going into the station. So next thing to do will be to lay these down where they're going on the baseboard, mark up where the holes are going to be drilled through for the droppers, which I have checked in advance, line them up to make sure they don't go on any cross bracing, drill the holes, and then put the fish plates on, connect them up to the main line, and then they'll be ready for connecting to the bus wires. So just a quick look now at the track in situ in the station. The down line there, up line here, solders have still held, drilled have gone through, ready to connect these droppers to the bus wire underneath. Haven't pinned anything down on this section yet, just waiting for a track gauge spacer to come. I believe, having watched Great Dalton's video, that 3 cm to 3 cm centre is what it should be to be realistic. I've got a little bit more on mine at the minute I've allowed, because this won't necessarily be the finished version of the platform. This is just something I had previously. And looking at what I need to allow on the back for the heritage platform and the heritage run round line, I think everything will come in slightly. So this up line is pretty much where it's going to be. I think I'll be bringing the down one over just a fraction to make it a little bit more prototypical. But yes, other than that, if I just bring a couple of coaches around. Everything runs fine there. And the same there. So fingers crossed when it comes to connecting up, that should all work. And then this is the back straight, if you like, the countryside section with the down main line there and the up main line there. Again, solders dropped in, seem to be connected, dropper wires are down ready to connect to the bus. Again, haven't pinned down, but coming out of the tunnel on the left section here, which will be there we go. So yeah, foreground at the minute, sort of slightly ignore this track. Not 100% sure, but there should be a spur coming off there which will form a freight line disappearing into the fiddle yard. But at the minute, obviously I'm just concentrating on getting the up and down main lines and loops done. So yeah, all good there hopefully once it's all clipped in. Okay, back to the hinge section of the layout. So just quickly to recap, above us is the centre of the fiddle yard, up and down main lines, and on this side will be the up and down freight lines. So we've got the hinge sections here on this side, and then this is the part here where it drops away. So the board drops down that way rather than lifts up. So you can probably see I've got the bus wires installed now and drilled underneath. So they're coming through bearers all the way around the layout, and the starting point is just over here. So the terminating point will be here on the hinge. So there won't actually be a full circuit as I mentioned before, and the break seems to be the natural point, will be on the hinge join there. So one end over this side and the terminating end here. So I've allowed a bit of slack as required so that when the board drops down, obviously it's not going to pull the wires out from the other way. But yeah, basically now above here where all the fiddle yards are, I can now connect droppers in to the bus wires, because obviously there will be a break in the power here, a natural break in the line if I'm to do it like I said I would for the future, where there will actually be a join in the track. So I'm going to wire it up on that assumption now, So there'll be, so there's going to be like 8 lines on the fiddle yard alone without coming onto the slow line that I'll need to drill through and put droppers in to connect to there. But then in theory, that will give me enough to actually start running a chunk of the layout on DCC if I want, because I could bring the wires at the minute, the terminating point, I have pulled them all the way through because I'm not lowering and raising this now all the time, but the end wires I can bring through and connect up to my NC Power Cab PCB port now if I want, and then with the other droppers, once I've put those in with the Scotch lock clips, I'll be able to test if what I've done so far works. And also today I've heard that the DCC Concepts Aegis system that I've ordered is in and shipping out, and as I paid for that in full, that should be coming out fairly soon hopefully. So again, that'll be something else that I'll need plumbing in, and also gives me the benefit of being able to run the main line and the programming line completely separate and hands-free with the NC Power Cab itself. So I'll get drilling and get some more droppers put in now. So having spent an hour or so after work each day and during days off, as you can hopefully see now, that is the fiddle yard, or at least the up and down mainline elements of the fiddle yard, completed. All the track and points are laid, wired in both ends with the fish plate pre-soldered droppers, and wired in the central section with the extra droppers soldered onto the track. So yeah, pretty happy with that. And then looking underneath the hinge section, there's the dropper wires coming through from each of the lines, ready to connect to the bus wire, which is the next project. So the position I'm in now essentially is where the station, still the temporary station at the minute, is. Up and down lines, they are right up to the back where you can see the back end of the Mark IIIs. That track's all pinned down there, so you come round up and down into the fiddle yard here, work our way through the various lines there, and then out into the back section over there, which again, 2 tracks the up and down lines in as far as those pair of coaches halfway down. That's all got droppers in, just need to connect those up to the bus wires, and then if I take the 2 ends of the bus wires and connect them up to my controller, then in theory all of this will be live and ready to run DCC fitted locos on. So yes, that's the first little milestone reached there, I would say, with the laying of all the fiddle yard track and the droppers all through the boards ready for connecting up, and track laid on both sides, coming down most of the way into the station and halfway down this back section here. So the next thing to do will be to get the Scotch lock clips, connect up the droppers to the bus wire, take the ends of the bus wire, stick the little plug on, plug them in my PCB port on my NC Power Cab, put some power on, and in theory then, if my soldering and everything else is any good, I should be able to run my DCC fitted locos on this section here, which would be good. Obviously I can extend the 2 up and down lines further if I want. I could almost just put a basic loop in each way, but obviously I want to make sure the next phases of my plan go accordingly. There might be a slight change in the fact that this section here, which was going to be the countryside section, and this section behind me here, which was going to be the engineering yard, might do a bit of a swap around. 2 schools of thinking on that. One, this is longer here, so I'd be able to have longer sidings to have longer trains in, and it's only a little bit shorter for the countryside section there. And the other thing is, on the back here, if I do away with all my crossovers on there, I'd be able to have a bit of a sweeping or almost a reverse curve in there, which might look a bit better, as Dad keeps telling me. So I need to look into that and see how it measures for where my points and things are going to go, and still if I can do everything I need to, because at some point trains are going to need to cross between up and down lines, and I need to incorporate that somewhere on the layout. But for this episode, I think that's about it. So hopefully the next episode we might have some DCC locos running, so stay tuned and see if that happens. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.